welcome back. I'm Pat.
Hey, I'm Ben.
This is Blue Collar Takes.
Yeah.
Sorry, struggling there. So we got a fun one for Ben today. I can't tell you how long we have talked about doing this one, and all the information that you have is impressive.
Yeah, man. Everybody remembers back at the beginning of the pandemic, and we all remember the scare, right? And for me, this all started, the research on this really started when they were trying to tell us at work that you have to have the vaccine. There was the potential that, hey, maybe we're going to be without a job if we didn't get the vaccine.
I remember those meetings, sitting in that meeting.
Yeah, and I was glad. I mean, at the time, you were one of the union guys, right, trying to figure it out.
Union vice president.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not getting this vaccine. I'm not getting something experimental. I've had enough of that. I'm not an anti-vax guy, as we talked. Like, military, I've been vaccinated under everything under the sun, right? But as I've gotten older, I've gotten more curious about what's going into my body. And when the studies were coming out and they're being censored, I just I didn't really appreciate it. And we'll get into it, but
yeah.
A lot of this was Operation Warp Speed was Donald Trump's initiative to get this vaccine out. And certain things just didn't sit right with me during this pandemic. And the funny thing is when Trump was putting it out and you had all these Democrats.
Yeah, you can see the video clip.
There's video clips of it.
Kamala saying, well,
we can't have that.
We're going to have to look at the studies first.
Yeah, right? I mean, Democrats are saying, no, we're not going to put this in our bodies. Once Trump leaves, everyone's getting it. You have to.
Yeah.
And I questioned that, right? And I think a lot of people did question it. And I know a lot of people did fake vaccination cards. I know a lot of people scammed the system because you had to. You had to. Like we talked about it. You kind of were handcuffed into getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I got the original 2 from Pfizer, and then I got a third one because we had to.
Travel, right?
Yeah, we'd spent a ton of money to go on a vacation for our 10th wedding anniversary, and all of a sudden you had to have this passport, this card, vaccine passport,
right? A passport to go anywhere, and like. That's so reminiscent of having your papers in Germany that I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that here's the condition for you to go somewhere. You have to have this. And at the same time, I mean, I had been watching the pandemic unfold in China. For me, I was watching them spray the streets down in China in Wuhan to curb whatever they were doing over there with the virus.
Yeah.
And that was in September of 2019.
Yeah, I remember talking about, maybe it was with you just in passing because we weren't on the same shift yet.
Yeah.
About just the shit happening in China before before it was here, before anybody even really knew. Like, hey, have you seen the shit they're doing in China right now?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was only a matter of time before it came here. And I can remember guys in full hazmat suits driving around with these hoses behind a truck, spraying fogging an entire area with some sort of, disinfectant, right? And I kept thinking to myself, well, that ain't good. That's not cool. And it didn't take me long to associate, okay, there's this virus and there's this lab right up the road from the where the virus is. Maybe it's connected. But then things started happening here, and I was just kind of like, oh man, this is insane. And I think what really got me to start looking at things, I've looked for this video, and I cannot find it. I cannot find it anywhere. But for those of you who have seen the video and you remember it, it's etched in my brain forever. There was a lady who was pissed off at people who weren't vaccinated. And she had said things like, when they approved the vaccine for children, because she had a child under the age of 3, she said, when they approved the vaccine for kids, it's on. And she had this look in her eyes, kind of reminiscent of AOC, that crazy look. And she said, she's going to come spit on people. She's going to get infected on purpose and come spit on people. And I thought to myself, how insane are you that this is what you're saying you're going to do because they're not vaccinated? You're going to come attack them by spitting on them? If you are in that side of the camp and you believe that you could kill them because they're not vaccinated, because that was her contention. That's all their contention, right? If you're not vaccinated, you can pass it, you can spread it, and you can kill people. But you yourself could also die, right? That was their whole contention, right? So I thought to myself, how crazy do you have to be to believe all that and then go ahead and, spit on somebody while you're infected to possibly put them in that situation where they could die.
That's a whole new level of crazy.
And I got some studies here that we're going to talk about, and it's absolutely sobering. What direction that kind of took. Dude, it's a study from the Social Science Medication Journal. They did a study, right? They took 1,200 people. This is in 2021, during the height of this.
Okay.
They took 1,200 people, and they asked them a series of questions, okay? And the questions they were looking for the responses to see how people viewed others with being unvaccinated,
okay.
Right?
Yep.
So they did a study to see if there's people that were sympathetic. Did you feel sympathy towards people who were unvaccinated that caught the virus? They asked about, would you be willing to help? Would you be willing to help the unvaccinated if they got sick with either fundraising, medical bills, any kind of help for them?
Sure.
They asked questions about, would you be desire to punish them if you know that they're unvaccinated and people around them have gotten sick who were vaccinated? Should they be punished for what they've done? Right? Could blaming it on them. They asked about their personal feelings of anger. They asked about all sorts of stuff. And the metric that they broke it down, they divided it into groups, and you got a rating between 1 and 5 based off the response. And I want to read you these responses because in 2021, this was symptomatic of the entire country, at least those who were really, really, really pushing this.
Well, it certainly felt like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the first study, in terms of attributed responsibility, and the question is, did you feel that those who were unvaccinated were responsible for those who were vaccinated catching COVID-19? Out of a total of points of 5 points, 2.81 of that, a total of 5 out of the 12,000, right, said yes, they believed that the unvaccinated were the reason this was continuing. In terms of sympathy.
So what is that? That's like over 50%.
Yeah. That's 50% of all of the vaccinated individuals said that the unvaccinated were responsible. Okay. It gets higher here.
Yep.
Sympathy. They were asked, do you feel sympathetic, or would you be more willing to feel less sympathy for people who catch the coronavirus if they're unvaccinated and suffer from it, be put on a ventilator and or die? 3.81 said they felt no sympathy over 1.07. So no sympathy. Almost 90% of the vaccinated said, no, I don't feel sympathy for you. It's your fault.
So what was that? It's over 75.
Mm-hmm.
This is almost 80.
80%. Willingness to help. So if I got sick and I'm not vaccinated, you're vaccinated, and I put out a GoFundMe, would you donate to my GoFundMe? That was kind of this whole premise behind the willingness to help. 3.38% said absolutely not. They would not be willing to help. 3.38 out of 5, a total of 5.
70%.
Mm-hmm. So in the study group, the second portion of the study, attributing responsibility, right? It goes back to, again, they asked another question. This is after the fact now. They let a little bit of time elapse, okay? So the first study was done, and then the second study came out shortly after, and it was a 3-month time period here. They asked the same group, do you attribute the responsibility of the unvaccinated to being the reason why vaccinated are being infected? It went from 2.81 to 3.97.
Jeez.
Now, where did that jump come from? Right? I mean, we all know where it came from. It's the media putting out there that, nope, if you're vaccinated, you're safe. You can't spread it. You can't. And if you're unvaccinated, you're endangering your grandma. You're endangering everybody.
You're killing grandmas.
Mm-hmm. So, remember, we had 3.81% that weren't sympathetic. They felt no sympathy for you. 3.81 out of the 5, I should say, not percent, that felt no sympathy for you if you had gotten sick with COVID. So then they changed that question and they changed it into, are you angry? So basically, are you angry with the unvaccinated because you feel they're responsible? Because attributed responsibility went up. So they asked this question. 3.58 of the 5-point group said yes, they are angry, and it's because the unvaccinated are at fault. So the desire to punish. This is what gets scary. They asked if unvaccinated people should be punished either criminally or in some form or fashion for people being sick so if I'm around you, I get sick and you die and you're vaccinated. Now keep in mind, this is how ridiculous this question is worded, but it's worded that if the unvaccinated are responsible for vaccinated illness and death. Now just think about that for a second. If unvaccinated are responsible for vaccinated people becoming sick and dying.
But I won't get it if I get vaccinated.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
2.49 said yes, there should be severe punishment.
Jesus.
1.16 said no, there shouldn't be severe punishment. Now, I bring this study up because it showed me how divided we were and how much the media influenced people.
Yeah.
Right? We had people, I'm sure you had people in your family that were vaccinated and people in your family that were not vaccinated.
I think everybody in my family got vaccinated.
Did they?
Yeah.
So we had about, like my sister, kind of like you, one of my sisters had to travel. She got vaccinated. One of them was a nurse. She got vaccinated.
Yeah.
My mom, who was elderly, she got vaccinated. And I'm not trying to crap on the vaccination.
Right.
In my mom's case, it made a good choice. She's got health issues. And at the time, it seemed like everything was good and the vaccine was going to help.
Right.
We have since realized that the efficacy of the vaccine, Fauci just on Congress, on Capitol Hill, testified that, it seemed like it did well over a short period of time, and then the efficacy dropped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a very beautiful way of portraying the sound bites that we all got to see of it's 100% effective. You can't catch it. You can't transmit it.
Yep.
Then it went to, well, it's not 100% effective, but you can't transmit it, and it's okay.
Yep.
And then it went to, okay, well, you can catch it and you can transmit it, but it's still like 80% effective. And then they stopped giving you a percentage, and they started saying, well, it's going to keep you from being seriously ill.
Yeah.
And then that changed. Well, you can still die from it, but the likelihood is dramatically lesser than it had. So a vaccine's still going to help. And then,
lesser than the 0.001.
Right. And so now you're to the point with this vaccine that it's pointless.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yep.
Everyone's got to decide this for themselves. But I decided that I wanted to see some of the side effects because we are all starting to see those reports coming out of severe blood clots being pulled out of bodies after the fact, and that died suddenly trend that has gone around. I've got a couple stories in here of where two people who work for the same bank, both young men, both fit, died within weeks of each other and of the same thing. Yeah. So why is that happening? Why are these people dying? We've seen it. We've seen people drop dead, and it's very concerning that this is taking place. Well, the all-cause mortality rate has gone up a magnificent or massive jump from what it was before. Cancer rates are higher. We're seeing all these things trend in the upward, and it all happened after 2020. So if that's the case, is it the vaccine? We can't say it is, even though that we have the percentages and the numbers that have gone up. You can't attribute it yet because none of the facts were coming out about the vaccine.
Yeah.
So the CDC had just put out some information about the vaccine, and I want to read it. I printed this off of the CDC's own .gov website. It's literature about the vaccine, and this is just a small portion of side effects. It doesn't list all, and I'm not going to list all because the report is ridiculously long. It's 35 pages, and I'm not going to go through all of them.
Yep.
So some side effects have been reported after receiving the COVID-19 vaccines, most of which are short-term and resolve after a few days without any medical intervention. However, some more severe side effects have also been reported, and here's just some of them. The findings of the Brighton collaboration, as well as other previous studies on vaccine side effects, are briefly mentioned here. Various types of strokes, like non-hemorrhagic and hemorrhagic, encephalomyelitis, appendicitis, immune thrombocytopenia, whatever that is, Bell's palsy, acute myocardial infarction, anaphylaxis, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary myocarditis or pericarditis, disseminated intervascular coagulation, and narcolepsy are some of the serious side effects. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. So I had to look a lot of those up. And sure enough, it's blood clots. It's massive blood clots.
Yeah.
It's blood disorders. It's things that are causing strokes. It's things that are causing all kinds of issues that we are starting to see.
Yeah.
Now I kind of understand why the VAERS system was bombarded. And VAERS, if people don't know what it is, it's the vaccine injury recording system that we have in this country. It was bombarded with claims. And the CDC has come out and looked at a pile of those, and they're starting to slowly pick through them and tell you what is legit a vaccine injury and what is not. And the more I dug on this, the angrier I got.
Yeah.
Because we did see that Anthony Fauci and even Trump, this thing started under Trump, so
Yep.
I can't give Trump a pass on this.
Nope.
I do think he was painted into a corner, right? I mean, he had to get the vaccine rolled out, or he was going to look like he was a failure. So he put in Operation Warp Speed. And so I started digging, and I found that our government in 2011, we went to Moderna and we asked them to make mRNA vaccines, to work on it. So when COVID hit, one of the things we talked about this, I was most shocked about, was when that vaccine rolled out, how did Moderna and Pfizer are in competition, AstraZeneca and J&J are all in competition, right? You'll never find another vaccine where they all reach the same vaccine at the same time. They're not even going to do that with medication. You're never going to find that, right? So either they shared information on this vaccine, they had it available, or something was planned, right? They put the vaccine in play. I'm not saying they planned the pandemic. I'm not saying they planned any of that. What I mean is they had this available and they shared information on this vaccine so everybody could get to the vaccine all at once.
Right. The type of vaccine that it is.
That's never been done.
Yeah.
Never. We've never seen that before. Why would you do that, right? If you're Moderna and you have the vaccine and nobody else does, you make all the money. Now, why do you do that? Well, because everyone is going to make money off of this.
Right.
There's enough to go around. Why is there enough to go around? Trump wasn't going to make the thing mandatory. I don't think he was going to make the vaccine mandatory, right? I mean, he gave you other options.
I mean, we'll never know, but I would suspect that he would not.
Well, I think
it's clear from the way he approached other things that it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also he came out immediately and said hydroxychloroquine can cure this, which everybody on the left, everybody was like, oh my God, this information, Trump's going to kill you. That drug is awful. Well, here's the deal with hydroxychloroquine. It's used in Africa. They call it a Sunday to Sunday drug in Africa because they take it weekly to basically fight against malaria. So there's not the terrible side effects. There are side effects just like with any other drug, right?
Sure,
but,
they all do.
But it's not like it's going to kill you if you take it, like they pointed it out.
Well, there's millions of people that have taken it.
You're right. Millions.
You have research on it.
You have a body of research, right? But they came out immediately and slammed it.
Right, and why?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
At the time, during COVID, when COVID first came out, there was a drug called remdesivir. As I've been looking through the studies, remdesivir was a 2-course drug. It had to be administered in 2 cycles. It was intravenous, which means you had to be hooked up to an IV fluid to get it. Your treatments were basically you're hospitalized to have it done, right? Basically admitted. It was $1,400 a treatment. That's $2,800. That money is for the drug to be paid for. That doesn't include your hospital services. Now, hospitals are a business, and if you're sitting on the board of the hospital, which we saw this, they punish their doctors, and I have an article in here, our doctor's still getting punished, and we'll talk about that too. They get punished for going off-label with ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine when there's a body of study that says it helps. Instead, you're supposed to rep remdesivir. Well, if you're, like I said, a hospital administrator, you're on the board, it benefits you better or more, it's more beneficial to you to make money than to not make money. So they're bringing people in, giving them these 2 vaccine or these 2 IV courses of fluid with remdesivir. As it turns out, the efficacy of remdesivir was pretty much on par with the vaccine. It didn't do a whole hell of a lot to cure coronavirus. Now they have different drugs. They have Paxlovid and all sorts of other things that they're using, they do a little bit better job. But still, to this day, they're saying you can't use hydroxychloroquine and you can't use ivermectin, which was the other drug. Everybody remembers the Joe Rogan thing. Why are you taking horse paste? And Joe Rogan was like, it's not horse paste. I remember when they were talking about the ivermectin thing, and this is what gets me the most. They came out and said all these things about this drug is an animal drug. Every drug that you have, penicillin's used in animals.
Right.
You have every kind of antibiotic we have is used in
or pain reliever.
Yeah, and do you know why? Because those first went through animal trials.
Yeah.
So they were used first to get past the CDC on animals, and if they worked in animals, they came to human trials, or they should have, except for this vaccine. And when they're done, now you have a market for that same drug in a different, in a different dosage for animals, because it works for the frickin' animals.
Mm-hmm.
But just because ivermectin is used for in a paste for horses to get rid of or to fight back against parasites and things like that, it doesn't mean that it's not a human drug. It was designed for humans, not for anything else. Shocking to me that people can't see through that.
Well, and you couldn't have so ivermectin is used all over.
Mm-hmm.
It got a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, sure
for
did. Sure did.
And you can't have drugs for the emergency use authorization. You can't have any drugs that are able to fight whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So if something's working,
Right.
that's why they fucking went after him.
Well, I started to figure out, like I tell you, I put everything in the battle space to look for an ambush. And with these people, you can usually follow the money and get to where that ambush lies.
You should probably explain that.
So you're looking in your battle space, like this goes back to training that military types do. You're looking for signs and symptoms in your battle space that basically tell you that there's an ambush coming. If you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the local population is pulling off the side of the road and there's a guy on a rooftop somewhere watching and he's on a telephone, something's coming, right? Like the first sign is that mothers are taking their kids off the streets. Well, they don't want their kids on the streets because something's about to happen and they don't want their kids to be a victim, right? Love is love. It's worldwide. So when you're in your battle space, you're looking for those things in your battle space. Well, when we were going through some training, we had some very, very well-known, higher-up special operations community guys giving out some of this training on recognizing ambush, some guys that are legends in the field. And one of them kind of talked about, if you add this to your everyday life, if you put these things on the battlefield in your own life, anything it is, anything that's going on that you're questioning and you think there's something wrong with it, start putting the pieces on the battlefield and raise yourself above the battlefield to the 300 to 1,000 foot level instead of being ground level and see what you can see, right?
Sure.
And see if there's one thing that leads to another that leads to another, right?
Yeah.
So when I started with this, I took that and I started putting these things on the battlefield, right? Like it was one thing after another, after another, after another, after another.
Yeah.
It was no, we can't get vaccinated because Trump has it out here and we don't know what's in it.
Right.
2 weeks later, we all have to get vaccinated.
Yeah. Now we're in charge.
To the media immediately shifting and saying the vaccines are the only way forward, and you have to, if you want life to get back to what it was, you have to take the vaccine. All sorts of things. The flu disappearing. No reported cases in 2021 of the flu, or 2020 of the flu. It was a miracle. Right. I mean, honestly, the coronavirus should get a Nobel Prize for curing the flu.
Curing the flu?
Yeah. I mean, all these things, you put them in place and you're like, wait, what? You have the scientist who created the first swab test for coronavirus, and he said, hey, you can't use this to test for COVID-19 because it tests for all coronavirus. So you have that. You have the numbers, all the stories of the inflated numbers of deaths. A guy on a motorcycle dies and they swab him and he pops hot for coronavirus, which is a cold. If he pops hot for a cold, then the death went down as, it was a coronavirus death. That's not what killed him. Right. Being decapitated from a motorcycle accident is what killed him. Right. He just died and happened to have a coronavirus, which, looking back at the test, if the test is only testing for coronaviruses.
Just in general coronavirus, which is also all of your common colds.
Right. So if you if you weren't getting your blood drawn and getting labs done to actually
Right.
find and isolate COVID-19,
Yeah.
you were being tested for a coronavirus. And
Yeah.
he came out and said that, and they censored him. And when the censorship came in, all these things came in. When they said, no, you can't take hydroxychloroquine, that's when it really hit me. I talked about remdesivir as $1,400 a treatment, roughly.
Yeah.
And hydroxychloroquine was $11. It was a 10-day cycle of pills, and it was $11 for that entire
Right.
10 days.
Right.
So, I mean, you're not making nearly as much money off that drug as you are as remdesivir. The hospitals aren't making any money out of that. So overnight you had hospitals, I put this in the battle space, you had these administrations, hospital administrations saying to their doctors, you can't prescribe this stuff off label. That's not what it's used for, and we're not taking that kind of liability. Well, you're not taking that liability, but you know the efficacy of remdesivir is not what you think it is, and you're taking the money. So really you started to see this, and I started looking at it, I started following the money. And there was never any solid evidence that people were on the pay for this. People were taking money until the other day we came across the article, and I'll find it here. We came across the article saying that members of Fauci's merry band of misfits,
Oh yeah, the NIH.
the NIH,
That's 710.
the $710 million was given out to them in royalties between 2021 and 2023.
Right.
Why is $710 million in royalties being sent out, right? That to me, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
It blew my mind because how is anybody taking that kind of money in a situation like this when there's so much demand? Like, the vaccine was demanded, right? You will take this if you're a nurse, or you're going to lose your. How many nurses did we see lose their job? How many police officers? Military. That's what pissed me off the most, was our military. A lot of them are gutted from this. Our special operators, in the highest versions of special operations, were made non-deployable. And a lot of them did the whole. I've seen since that a lot of them may have had fake vaccine cards that they did. But these guys are at the pinnacle of your military. They know what's in their body. They take care of their bodies because their body is a machine, a part of that machine, part of the war process. I mean, it is a tank for them. That's what their body is.
Yeah.
How can anybody take this?
You want to know how many people work at the NIH?
Yeah.
18,000.
18,000 people. So I'm going to give you this number, right? The National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, led until recently by Dr. Anthony Fauci, collected nearly all of the $710 million, with $690,218,610 paid out in royalties. A lot of that went to the NIH. There's still a lot of that didn't.
Yeah, so it's like $40,000 a person if you count everyone. Probably the people that clean and the people that are the receptionists, which they're not getting it.
No, it's going to. Well, here's the thing too. The group, this is all coming from a watchdog group, right? It's a nonprofit government watchdog group that is looking at this stuff, that's brought this out. That's why we found it. They filed a FOIA. Right?
Yeah.
They're working with Judicial Watch right now to file more FOIAs.
Unmask who got the money.
They're trying to unmask who got the money. And lo and behold, guess what? There's pushback. The group that got the money doesn't want their names out there because they don't want you to know how much or who got the money. Go figure, right?
Yeah, we'll play that.
Oddly enough, Fauci then was on Capitol Hill and he disavowed an advisor who was deleting emails.
Yeah.
Who was caught in emails. I don't know why you didn't delete this one.
Yeah.
Was caught in emails saying, hey, I think I figured it out how to delete emails ahead of FOIA requests.
He didn't figure it out.
He didn't figure it out, right? And Fauci said, I have nothing to do with that guy.
Well, not only that, didn't he say that he doesn't really work with that guy and that guy's his chief advisor?
Yeah. I mean,
bullshit.
Well, of course, Fauci's been bullshit from the beginning.
Of course,
and
but come on.
This is what's killing me with this whole coronavirus thing. People aren't thinking critically anymore, right? You're not following the money. There was another study that I wish I would have got out of here. I didn't print it out for it. More billionaires were made during this pandemic than the previous 100 years.
That's insane.
That's insane. That's insane. More millionaires were made during this pandemic than the previous, same time frame. Why? Because they invested in Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, these people making the drugs, making the vaccines. And why would you not? I would
Right.
like to, maybe in the future, you and I have to take a look at members of Congress who invested in these.
Oh yeah, that's going to be one for sure.
We're going to have to, because they knew this thing was not a good vaccine. We're starting to see reports. You sent me that thing that I read last night, and if I read that right, it sounds like the reason why this was okay to do is because it doesn't have to actually vaccinate anybody against anything to be called a vaccine.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. There was a ruling out of the Ninth Court of Appeals that was talking about, it was, what I found was just a post on X that had a picture of part of the ruling, I guess,
Yeah.
that had said that the vaccine was a non-traditional vaccine, and that's kind of where I stopped with it. And I was like, oh man, maybe this is going to open up a legal pathway to be able to sue to get it removed from the vaccine schedule. But then you took it and you're like, well, did you read the whole thing? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it sounds like in the court they recognize that to be a vaccine, to be called a vaccine, it doesn't have to vaccinate you against anything. It just has the intention, has to have had the intention.
The intention to vaccinate.
Right. So it can do a completely other, it can give you cancer, but I meant to give you the vaccine.
That's crazy.
I'm calling it a vaccine. It was.
So we'll have to pull that up. We'll do one on just that.
We're gonna have to look that up and verify it, because if that's the case, I want to know everybody in Congress who put money in on this thing. I want to know where the money's going.
For sure. Because
this is ridiculous. This is the article about the doctor, and there's been plenty. This is out of Epic Health. Doctor fined for prescribing ivermectin against COVID-19. Again, another doctor, this one in Washington State, been fined for prescribing ivermectin against COVID-19, and he must now can take continuing education classes according to newly filed documents.
Jeez, what does that sound like?
Mm-hmm. So, I can't even say his name. It's Wee Sung Lin, I'm guessing, must pay $5,000 according to an order signed by the Washington Medical Mission on May 2nd, right? So here you are prescribing ivermectin instead of using Paxlovid, another new drug, which I'm sure if we looked at the number behind Paxlovid, I'm sure that's more expensive than ivermectin, right? Paxlovid's it's the new great thing that's being pushed.
It's terrible for you.
And I'm sure it is, and here it is. Really?
Yeah. I was vaccinated 3 times. I got COVID 3 times. And the first time I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
For sure. And then the next 2 times was not as bad. But
which I'd expect. You're developing an immunity.
Mm-hmm. But they were all different. It was crazy. But the last time, which I didn't have any symptoms for, but that's when the girls were sick.
Okay.
We ended up at Children's ER.
Yeah.
And that turns out they had a super high fever, not related to COVID, but they had it. It was a double ear infection in both of them. And then I don't know how, I ended up on Paxlovid. And that was terrible. That was
miserable.
It was horrible for the week or whatever you had to take it. It's everything. You just had a constant metal taste in your mouth.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
That was horrible.
When I got COVID, I think it was 2021, maybe in the winter of 2021. And for the most part, I had gone a long time. A lot of people were getting sick, and I was fine. And I got it, and I'll tell you, it knocked me on my butt. And I can remember my mom yelling. She's a former nurse, right? She's retired. She's yelling at me that I should just go get the goddamn vaccine. And I laughed, and I said, I have a 99.997% chance of surviving this thing. If I fall into that, small, tiny, group of people who are going to pass away, it's my time.
Yeah.
I survived combat. I survived all sorts of stuff.
For sure. You've been through some shit.
It's my time. I'm not scared of a cold. I'm not. And that she was going ape crap. I mean, she did not like the fact that she had gone and gotten the vaccine. She wanted every one of us to go get the vaccine. She wanted my kids to be vaccinated. And she believed everything you heard. And I'm sure she fell into that study where
there's so many people
the anger and the frustration, and it's your fault, you're going to get somebody killed, you're going to this, you're going to that. And that just wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
Now it looks like there was a financial benefit to this, and we all knew it the whole time. I mean, those of anybody who's looking at things critically.
Well, there was always going to be.
Always, right?
But you didn't. you didn't think that was the driving factor.
No, but I'll say it right now. This is not the first time. It's been done with war.
Yeah.
No bid contracts to Halliburton and KBR.
Well, the no bid contracts, and we've talked about this on other things, other podcasts already. It's weird saying that this is like number 8,
Right.
but we've already talked about that. Like, there's no bid contracts on everything.
Yep. And
It's crazy.
You think about it. It's been done on insurance, health insurance, and Obamacare.
Yeah.
It's been done on green energy.
Yeah.
It's been done. We're subsidizing tons of stuff with no bid contracts or subsidies that are helping things along. And now we just did the most massive version of this, which was the vaccine rollout, right? So you have the vaccine rollout take place and mandated, right?
Yeah.
You must take this. And how many people, I mean, if you think about this, you're being manipulated through media. You're being manipulated. That's why that jump in resentment happened between a 3-month period or whatever that month period was in there. It was a short period. I think it was 3 weeks. That's why that jump happened. Well, what happened? What changed? What changed was all of these media outlets are starting to say, you're at fault. You are bad. You're killing grandma. You're doing this. You're doing this. And people believed it because they were scared.
Well, bro, just all the channels. Like, every time they talked about it, the borders were red around the screen with the death numbers and all that shit. Like, all the press conferences, it was 100% a scare tactic.
And then you know what got me the most during all of this? You'd be watching Rachel Maddow on MSNBC or whatever. I don't even watch her.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't be either. But you'd be watching one of their networks, and all of a sudden, this episode is brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, look at that, Pfizer. The guy who's making the vaccine is telling, it's sponsoring this reporter who's saying that everyone's going to die unless you get the vaccine. The NFL, same thing. Like, oh, brought to you by Pfizer, brought to you by Moderna. And you saw it everywhere. They advertised everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
And they had people pulling the strings.
Which is not legal in Europe, right? Drug companies can't advertise in Europe, I believe.
I don't know.
I think I heard that. Maybe I made that up.
We'll have to check that out. Because that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think they can sponsor things.
That would make sense.
We'll check that out.
That's the way it should be.
We'll check that out for next time.
That's the way it should be. You shouldn't.
I don't want to make something up, but I feel like I read that somewhere.
I've heard it too. I don't know if it's Europe, but I've heard the same thing.
I don't know if it's true. We'll look it up.
So I started seeing all sorts of things, right? And then this happened to me in my own county. The county commissioner, the county medical health official, was basically trying to figure out a way where they could remove people from your house and put them in a hotel if you had COVID.
Going to Australia.
This is even before Australia.
Jesus.
And God bless our sheriff here. He said, I'm not going into anybody's house. He's a constitutionally based individual. I mean, he understands that his is an elected position and it's the only constitutionally recognized position. And he'll remind you that, right?
Yeah.
You're not a sheriff's department. He says we're a sheriff's office.
Correct.
So he said right away, you can do all you want there, but none of us are going to go and remove anybody from a house. That's not going to happen. So he stood up and said what he needed to say. And really what ended up taking place is parents, members of the community showed up at a county board meeting, and they shut that down fast. And there were threats thrown around. You come to my house, and you're not going to leave. That kind of thing was being said.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what's worse for a parent. Your kid gets coronavirus with all this fear going around, or that somebody who's just going to show up to your house and say, oh, you have a 13-year-old? They're coming with me. We're going to go put them in this hotel where they're going to stay by themselves. Bullshit. This kid stays here. Over my dead body is this kid going to move, is going to be taken out of my house, right? That sort of stuff was happening. And it just shocked me, like, that this could take place in my own county, right? Yeah. It didn't make it. It didn't last. But then we went through the school board bullshit. We went through the school boards wanting to make it mandatory. They wanted kids to have it. They wanted all sorts of crap to be able to be brought back to school. They made our kids wear masks. They, the distance between, they wanted distance learning. They wanted all this craziness. Yeah. And kids had a better chance of survival than anybody else. The teachers, sure, if you were an elderly teacher with a with a previous health existence or previous health condition, comorbidity, whatever it's called, you had a little bit more to worry about. But that's what the vaccine was there for, right?
It was supposed to be.
Right. The vaccine that you keep pushing everybody to have is supposed to work.
Yeah.
So if the kids can survive, and it's a parent's choice, is what it should be for their child,
Yeah.
why not go ahead and let the parents decide? Eventually, there was people recalled in our school district and things like that. And at the local level, the community level, things got ugly. And it wasn't just us. It was all over. I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was happening everywhere. Well, now we're seeing...
That's when they started tagging people as domestic terrorists. For
bringing in the FBI.
Going to a school board meeting.
You bring in people from the FBI for this COVID stuff, and then the DEI, the trans woke stuff, and now they're domestic terrorists, right?
Yeah.
This stuff started to get crazy, and you started to see the very first time ever in this country, tyranny had started to come in that had not been here previously, that had not been here before coronavirus, before COVID-19.
Right.
Tyranny crept in here, and it stayed here for the duration. We got one moving around.
That's all right.
It stayed here for the duration, right? I can't for the life of me figure out how we didn't call that out. We're supposed to be a free people. We're a republic. We're a constitutional republic that is meant to be free, where we the people control the government, not the government controlling we the people.
Yeah, the representative republic.
But they wielded the virus as a weapon and said, you will have this or else.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing lawsuits. We're seeing all sorts of things play out because people lost their jobs. And I know military members may get their jobs back. I don't know where that's gone. I know a lot of buddies who were very high up in the military and special operations community that are out now that said it was ridiculous, most ridiculous thing they've ever gone through.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
No. What a way to weaken your military. You take the best of your best, right? I can't imagine like how many Navy SEALs we lost, how many Delta operators, how many recon Marines, how many Rangers we lost, how many Special Forces members we lost because of this.
The dudes with the experience, because they'd just gone through it.
They had gone through it. They've lived it. They've done all these operations for this country, and then you tell them, hey, this vaccine that you have to get, that you don't want to get, you can't stay in the military and support and defend your Constitution, support and defend your country, unless you get this, because we say so. Now, if this vaccine had been around, 100 years.
Right.
If this was like the flu vaccine.
Bro, just 20 years.
Yeah, if we had some data and to say that it worked and it was safe, my kids would have got it. Yep. I would have got it. Yep. I would have had no problem. Yep. There was nothing. And then when I start hearing, it can cause myocarditis. What's that? Oh, it's a heart problem that can kill you. Oh, wait, what? And then that was justified. These people came out on the left and on the right and said, well, yeah, but you know what? This causes myocarditis too, and this and this and this and this, and you take this and you've done this. I didn't know that. Thank you. You've just made me more aware about what's going into my body. Yeah. I had no idea because I never looked at stuff. I just assumed you were a good person trying to do something good for me, and your job as a doctor was to tell me these side effects. That never happened. I can honestly say now when I go to a doctor and I'm going to be put on a medication, my doctor and I are having an informed conversation about what are the side effects. I have never done that before. I've never watched the commercials and really paid attention to the litany of side effects that come off. It may cause this, and death. Yeah. I never paid attention to that because it was just a stupid commercial. Now I'm like, it looks like I won't be touching that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
But it got scary, and it got scary fast. And I say this because it's getting scarier, right? The World Health Organization wants to develop a unilateral control measure for the next pandemic worldwide. They want all nations to buy into this system, and Biden is trying to buy us into the system.
Yeah.
Basically what it does is it puts the World Health Organization in response to your pandemic response. They're in control of your pandemic response. They take control of it, and they make the rules, they make the laws, and you follow. Your country, your president, and everyone else takes a back seat and has waged, if they agree to this, that they will follow all of this stuff no matter what. That sounds an awful lot like giving up freedom, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that.
No.
So then we started looking further. I started looking at things that Fauci had said and didn't say, right? As it turns out, Fauci has said more than he didn't say, we're starting to see. We saw that video of the senator, I think it was a senator, wasn't it, who caught Fauci. He was a doctor, and he treated patients.
The representative.
Was it a representative?
Yeah.
He caught Fauci. And McCormick. Yeah, thank you.
You want to watch the video?
Yeah, bring it up. Pull that video up. Let's watch that. I mean, this is insane. It's McCormick, a doctor who had treated patients during the pandemic, is teeing off on Fauci because of Fauci being Fauci, right? He had no experience, never treated anybody, had been taking royalties from pharmaceutical companies, from Pfizer and Moderna. And here he is telling doctors what they should and shouldn't do. Let's take a listen.
You said in an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Spector that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated. Could we run the audio clip on that, please?
You think can be done about it. I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and
Thank
that's
you.
not what I was referring to.
Well, in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context. And I take great offense to this. Miss Allison Williams testified before this committee about losing her job because she sought an exemption for ESPN's vaccine mandate, which came from recommendations from bureaucrats like yourself. She and her husband were actively working with a fertility expert, a physician, on how to get pregnant, and agreed with the premise that she was young, healthy, wanted to get pregnant, and shouldn't get the vaccination for medical purposes. But she was fired because you made it hard, just like you said in your statement, because you didn't want to make sure that the ideological bullshit got in the way of her working, of living her life, of making a medical decision with her healthcare professional. I think America should take great offense to this.
He's right. America should take great offense to this. And this is the thing, right? Doctors weren't allowed to be doctors. They weren't allowed to come to a decision. If you think about it, you've had your own doctor for however long. You have a personal relationship. That doctor's job is to give you the information and to assign a drug to you that best fits you. They weren't allowed to do that. They weren't allowed to do that if they believed that hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin were the drug for you. They weren't allowed to. They were forced to give you what they wanted, what the establishment wanted to give you. Why? Because that's where the money was being made. We know that now, right? Fauci talks about people will lose their ideological bullshit when life is made hard for them. Well, I wouldn't call you at all ideological. Not one bit. I don't see you as being an ideologue at all, right? But they did make life hard for you.
Of course they did.
You were going to lose money.
We thought we were going to lose out on our trip.
You're going to lose money.
It was a substantial amount of money that we've been saving for it.
And I know you stressed about it.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing you in passing, stressing about it because we had those conversations, and you're like, I'm just going to get it.
I had to. I had to, yes.
Well, amazing to me that the ideological bullshit will be taken away when we make life hard for you. But at the same time, I'm going to make money and royalties off of this.
Yeah.
And we now know that. But I'm not going to tell you who or how much or how many people because I won't give you that information. That's personal. But we're going to make money off it. Now, the thing that scares me, that kind of tyranny, that thought, that can only be expanded on, right? And now we have the World Health Organization is saying that they want control in a pandemic. And the thing that terrifies me about that is if we turn over our freedom here, well, what are we going to look like in the next pandemic? And the answer is the World Health Organization recognizes that Australia had one of the best examples of how to deal with the coronavirus. What did Australia do? Australia made COVID camps. They made lockdown camps where, like the hotel in my county that they wanted to do, if you contracted the virus and they found out about it They had a hotline set up where you could call, and then they would come pick you up and take you to a camp and put you in a friggin' trailer in a camp. And the camp, it wasn't a summer camp. It had concertina wire fences all the way around it, and it had guards. And there's a video, I wish I would have found it, I didn't, of a woman who is arguing with the COVID guards at the camp. Her porch on her unit that she was supposed to stay in, she was not allowed to leave her porch. They were not allowed to go anywhere. They couldn't go walk, they couldn't go run, they couldn't do anything. She was at almost the end of her time there. She's 14 days quarantine.
I think we watched this video.
We did watch it. We watched it together. I couldn't find it.
Weird.
She was up against a fence on her deck. She could, and the thing that they were arguing with her about was she couldn't come off her deck and talk to anybody, or she couldn't walk over to the fence and talk to somebody through the fence because of the possible transmission, the spread of the virus, right? We knew now after a certain period of time that after 5 days you were not infectious. Now people come back to work after having COVID. I mean, they go to work with COVID damn near, right?
Yeah.
So, but back in the time, Australia locked you down even when they had the information that she wasn't allowed to stand by the fence and talk to somebody else through the fence. But she could be on her porch, which also butted right up to the fence, and talk to somebody through the fence. The rules made no sense.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. You're doing what we tell you to do. That's what matters. You will do what I want you to do, not what you want to do. I am in control, not you. And Australia did that hard. And we did it here a little bit. We arrested moms for taking their kids to parks after public parks were closed.
Yeah. Didn't somebody get arrested or something in Florida for paddleboarding?
Oh, California for paddleboarding. Florida.
I thought it was Florida right away, because weren't they talking to that video we saw was to the Florida health person? Right?
Yeah, but they were using examples of all over the
okay.
place.
All right.
Basketball hoops were cut down at public parks so kids couldn't play basketball. Don't go outside and get the needed vitamins you need and needed exercise. Lock yourself inside and stay away from that sunlight, right? And that's kind of what they were talking about in that video. But yeah, somebody got arrested for paddleboarding on the ocean by themselves. Because they could infect, I don't know what, a shark, some fish.
Sharknado is a real thing.
Right. And it went on and on and on. So then you had Anthony Fauci consistently throughout our pandemic. And I have multiple articles of Fauci praising Australia's response. Yeah, hit it.
America's leading virus expert has praised Australia's response to managing the pandemic. Dr. Anthony Fauci has applauded the country's lockdowns to combating coronavirus. He says the model is proof of the pudding, that when you uniformly implement public health measures, you can turn off the surges, is what he said. Dr. Fauci says his home country failed to replicate the same approach, fearing the worst is still to come in the United States.
That was obviously from Australia about...
Yeah, Fauci giving them praises for locking their people down and doing what they were doing.
Locking them up in the camps.
In the camps, right? Fauci said if we just would have done that here, we would have stopped everything, right? Does Australia have the higher numbers that everybody else does? No. But you know what Australia is? It's an island. And once you control your borders on that island, your numbers can drop.
They don't have a border problem?
Right. Once you get to herd immunity, that's immunity, right?
Well, look,
you
who was that?
less
That was
cases.
Sweden, right?
Yes.
Sweden had all the young kids go rave it out one
Yes,
weekend.
and everybody got sick right away, but then it dropped.
It was over.
It went off a cliff. The numbers dropped, right? I myself have not been sick with COVID-19 like I was the first time, and I don't know, did the virus die off? We hear about, it's Omicron and this and that. Did it just go away, or are you now, your body's able to handle it and it's immune to it because you've gotten it the first time? Who knows? I mean, I know that there's studies either way, and you're never going to be able to convince somebody on the other side that this is ridiculous. But you see what this example is. Fauci repeatedly throughout the course of the pandemic, lauded Australia as, oh my gosh, their response to this is the greatest. They have it right, and if we only did what they did, we'd be okay, right? We're free. We're a free people. We pride ourselves every 4th of July for fighting for fucking freedom. Yep. We sent myself and hundreds of thousands of others to fight for our fucking way of life in 2 countries in the Middle East. We got blown up. We got shot at. We got spit on. We got hit with rocks. We got rocket attacked. We got IED attacked. all the fucking time. We got ambushed in Afghanistan in frickin' passes. We got stuck in fucking valleys and ambushed from mountaintops in Afghanistan. We got stuck on fobs in Iraq that were right next to shitholes and got rocketed and mortared constantly. Why? So that we could preserve our fucking way of life, right? It's so important for you to preserve our way of life that you send us over to these places and we die with staggering numbers, right? And more come home wounded. The number that came home wounded and disfigured is even more staggering. And after that, the people that came back with mental scars is 10 times that number. That's okay. It's okay to fight for our way of life there. Not at home. Not at home when there's a pandemic and people can die. That's where we don't fight for life. That's where we lock everybody down and we steal your freedom. No, we don't. That, to me, when people were not standing up, like one of the most courageous things I've ever seen was a nurse at a hospital say, no, I'm not doing it. And they said, well, you're done, you're fired. And she said, fine, fire me. I'll find another job. I was looking for a job when I found this one.
Yeah.
You know you're going to lose your livelihood. You know you're losing your pay, your benefits, your health care. But you know what? You stood your moral fucking ground and you said, no, I'm not doing it. You can't take a free person's freedom and force them. And I hate to say this. If you're on the left, it's your body and your choice when you want to have an abortion. But it's not my body and my choice when you want to have me vaccinated.
Yeah.
The two distinctions there are sickening.
For sure.
Sickening. One's okay. One is not.
Yeah.
This whole thing pisses me off. The whole fucking thing pisses me off. Because I remember having conversations with our bosses at work.
Yeah.
And I remember telling them, I'm not getting vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my bosses, who I respect, looked at me and goes, buddy, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can't tell you. He said, I'm praying that they don't try to do this. He said, because I think we'll have a big portion of our workforce that's going to say no.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm terrified because I don't want to lose people.
Yeah.
And I said, I understand that, but you guys got to fight for us. And he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, I can't. So what does that tell you?
Right.
That's tyranny.
Yeah. No, I remember sitting in that meeting with the couple people on our side, and they said, well, then they basically called it out like, yeah, no, people aren't going to do that. And I looked at them and I said, they absolutely are. Mark my words.
They will fight
you
back.
are not going to have your numbers.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
You're not going to have your numbers. And they looked at me and I don't know what it was, but the look on the one guy's face was just like, he realized like, holy shit, they really think they're going to lose people.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I know for a fact that you will.
I did too.
A substantial number.
We were all having the conversations, right? Like, are you going to do it? No, I'm not doing it. Are you going to do it?
Yep.
No, I'm not going to do it. And some of those guys got picked off.
Yeah.
And did it.
Yep.
But they did it because they had to go somewhere. They had to,
Yep.
there was a benefit.
Another thing.
Right. They had to. They were being forced to do it to.
And then the work thing just pushed them over. Like we've talked about it. We make really good benefits. We get good pay.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So that's, you threaten people with that.
And then they rolled out the, not no fault of our bosses, but they rolled out the, we'll pay you to get vaccinated. It was like $250 or $450, whatever
I don't
it was.
even remember that part. Yeah, now I do.
They paid people. And even then, people were like, yeah, fuck you.
Fuck
Take
you.
that and shove it.
Yeah.
And
that was nice, though, because I had to get vaccinated for the trip, so I got that free
you got
money.
the free money. Now you're going to die of myocarditis, but that's cool.
It's okay. I'm fat, so I'm going to die of that first.
Fat is happy.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. That just reminds
me.
me
Unless I'm running a race.
The Lizzo South Park thing.
Oh, God. Man.
That was the reaction you sent me of
fucking
Lizzo
brilliant.
reacting to it.
Lizzo's reaction to that video.
I was crying.
Man.
But I mean, I'm going to use that as an example now. I mean, look at how far we've come as a society where it's like, I get it. I don't shame anybody for how you look.
Yeah.
If you're happy, good for you, man.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely, I respect that. My job as a human being is not to go after you in any way, shape, or form.
I'm not judging you.
I'm just, I want to live my life and I want to live it how I want to live, just like you want to live yours. And you know what? If you're happy, cool. I'm happy for you. But then to say we have to change everything fundamentally and put these people on a pedestal and say, well, it's not that they're not healthy. You know what I mean?
No, she's unhealthy.
Joe Rogan's like, she's going to fucking die of a heart attack.
Oh, dude, if she makes it to that.
And this whole like body positivity thing, I think it's great. I'm glad you
Rich people get Ozempic, poor people get body positivity.
Right?
Fucking brilliant episode.
Yes.
South Park nailed it.
And they've been nailing it for a long time.
Yeah,
this is one of the group.
For sure.
And man, if they're listening, if they ever listen to this,
if they're listening, there's only 10.
Yeah, right now. I'm just saying if they ever hear this, right? If they ever hear this, thank you for being the only ones that takes shots at the right and the left.
Everyone deserves it.
Everyone deserves it. And you know what? Fuck it. Burn it all.
Yeah, burn it down.
I appreciate that a lot. Because you know what?
100%.
You either have to have thick skin on both sides or you can you don't just get to have it one way. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of a roundabout way, but Fauci is a giant piece of human excrement.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the book, and I tried to get it on audio just because I don't think I could read that book, the
HIV book.
RFK.
Oh, the COVID pandemic.
The real Anthony Fauci book. Just because I think it'd be pretty tough to read.
Have you started it?
No. I'm gonna go get it, I think, and
I will tell you, I have done a lot of research and I've seen a lot of things about Fauci with his reaction to HIV and what they've done there, and there's a lot of conspiracy in that. It doesn't do him any favors the way he acts now, or the way he acted during this.
The whole thing, like, and I know it's Rogan's big thing and whatever, but if that shit wasn't true in the book, he'd be getting sued.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's not.
For sure. And
so,
yeah, he's right. I mean,
yeah.
Listen, people on the left hate RFK, right? He's a rabble rouser.
Yeah,
he's
for sure.
He's tearing down some of the norms. He's Trump for the left.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yep, me too.
I think that the stuff he's done environmentally, I know we've had some talks about this. It's a little bit worrisome for some people because he may come after corporations and do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the boundary waters in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Off limits. Get the fuck out of the boundary waters. You're not that I'm some green.
And you've kind of changed my mind on that. Like, I agree. You're never getting that back. I always thought about it as, well, if there's a way we can do it, and if you're allowing people to do it. My problem with the whole process is we have a process for you to do it. And then all of a sudden we just, after you've gone through all the fucking steps, no, that's not a thing. That shouldn't be a thing. Don't make it a process then. And then that's fine. If there isn't a way to do it, then that's fine.
One of our coworkers and I were talking about this. Yeah. And you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name out here, but he said something that was profound.
Yeah.
I
think I was in there with you.
You probably were. If you believe that this limited source of materials that you're going after is the answer to whatever your problems are, you're missing the whole point.
Right.
Because it's limited. It's finite. You should probably figure out a new path and a new course and a new way that doesn't involve ripping things up and destroying it. Because, like he said, once it's destroyed, it's never going to be the same again.
No, and I think that's probably, I gave you the credit, but I think that was him that turned me. Like, you're fucking right.
He's right. And like I said with him, it's the one place that I have ever been to where I've run into some people that were way far left.
Yeah.
And I'm right, I guess. People are going to think I'm far right, but I'm really not that far right. But you sit down, you have a meal together, you have a great conversation, you learn a lot, you share stuff.
Yeah.
It's where people can be people, and all the BS of what you've just left and got away from is gone, and you're just people being good to people.
You're all the same up there.
You're all the same. You're working for your camp, your meal.
Fishing for your food. You're trying to find a campsite and get set up.
Yep. I love it up there, and I
love it up there too.
I just could not. I that was the one. If I had to go sit somewhere in front of a bulldozer, it was going to be there, and I'd be interlocking my arms with a bunch of people that I normally would not ever be around. But that's
for sure.
Leave that off limit. It's like my great reset button. I love that place. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we got to that out of this, but fair enough.
I don't know.
What do you think? Fauci's, do you think he gets...
I want to know how much he's getting.
Yeah.
He says he claims he didn't get any money
bullshit.
from that. He got $122 from something that he made a long time ago.
The guy who sits on Bill Gates' board of his medical foundation.
Well, no, he did not say his wife didn't get anything. So who are they sending the checks to?
Well, his wife works for the CDC, right? And she approved.
Isn't she on the board of something?
She approved the vaccine. She was one of 3 that helped, or whatever it was, that approved the vaccines coming through. I mean, the whole thing was a setup from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And it was designed to make money.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they released this. This is going to be the conspiracy portion of this talk.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they released this thing so that they could make a ton of money. I'm saying once it did get released.
Yeah, once it got out.
It's just like every mass shooting. The Democrats never lose the opportunity to capitalize on some sort of mass shooting, right?
Yeah.
They try to advance their agenda at every stage. Well, this one was both right and left. They didn't miss the opportunity to make money on this thing. And they let Fauci go absolutely crazy with power. And this is Trump. I'm sorry. You're my guy. But you got to explain why you left frickin' Fauci in charge. Why you let him run the pandemic response. Why you let that little weasel. And I do remember Trump came on stage and cut him off a couple times and said, no, that's not going to happen. He said some things that pissed Fauci off. I do remember that. I absolutely do. But at the same time, you still have to explain why this took place, why this was allowed to take place. All right. Well, we had a little bit of technical difficulties and 2 teenagers.
Yeah. You have 2 teenagers.
Yeah, I have 2 teenagers, and then the technical difficulties was a battery malfunction.
Dude, the battery exploded.
Yeah, and our recording equipment was full of battery acid.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. You got to stop making your own batteries.
Wow, why? It's cheaper.
Nope.
Not in the long run.
Yeah.
I don't even remember where we were, so we're just going to kind of recap. Maybe shorten this up a little bit. At the end of it, I think freedom is a big deal in this country. I don't want to be put in a COVID camp.
Yeah.
I don't want my public officials to be paid money and royalties to shove a vaccine down my throat.
Yeah.
I don't want my political officials, before they're elected, to tell the truth and say, I'm not getting that because I don't know what's in it. And then after they're elected, to tell me, oh no, it's perfect, to go ahead and get it, and then make money off it. I don't want people to be, the censorship that took place, that should never have taken place. I don't want any doctor who thinks he has information to be censored. Why would we ever do that? Well, the answer to that whole spiel was that it cost profits for these people, right? So you had the Zuckerbergs of the world who were asked to censor people on Facebook, and he did. And there's emails to prove it. There's emails to prove it.
The Twitter files for Twitter.
So I don't want any of that crap. And they already talk about the next pandemic. They're already making a vaccine, and they're calling it Vaccine X or whatever for the next pandemic. Well, obviously, if you don't have a virus out there, you're just going to do an mRNA vaccine with the next pandemic.
Yeah.
Just like we did in 2011 with the mRNA for this.
Yeah.
That's how they roll it out. That's how they all got in line together. And we did Operation Warp Speed. So look at this. There's nobody innocent in this thing. Trump did Operation Warp Speed. I do feel like he was forced. His hand was forced. He had to do it. But you left Fauci in charge. Now, some of that, I think, like we talked about before, was he realized who the people were after the fact. These people were recommended to him because he didn't know who they were.
Yep.
And then he found out the hard way.
Well, Fauci was in this spot for how long?
Right.
Right, so
But there's also a body of evidence about Fauci with what he did with HIV and AIDS. You probably should have known this guy.
He probably should have known, but he probably didn't.
Probably not. And that's a problem, too. I don't know, man. I'm not, like I said, I would imagine most people in our camp are never going to be pulled out of their homes or their kids. Mostly the kids. And probably some nights I probably wish that I could get yanked out, put in a COVID camp
Some nights it'd be nice.
Some nights it's a vacation.
You get sleep.
Yeah, right. However, most people aren't going to allow that to happen.
Right.
I don't even know why we would ever even think that that's okay. And now that Biden is thinking about turning over
Giving
our
up our sovereignty, yeah.
to the World Health Organization, not a good look.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. And if there's a lesson to take out of this, I talk about putting everything in the battle space. Put it in the battle space and see where you're at. See where things connect. Recognize those signs, and connect them to other things. Right? Like I said, when we're driving down the road, and moms are pulling their kids off the streets, and people are on rooftops watching, and military-age personnel start showing up. Military-age men are showing up, and they're looking at you. You put those things together rather quickly. Well, you can do the same thing. We got to start putting stuff in our battle space and looking at it and calling it out for what it is. You can't just blindly just believe Anthony Fauci, because there's a generation of our people in this country who were taught that being patriotic means you don't question your government. The true test of patriotism is to always question your government, because they belong to us, not we belong to them, right? They work for us. You can't keep your finger on the pulse of this nation if you're not holding them accountable for what they do. And we have lost all accountability, and no more so have I ever seen it than the pandemic. It was bad during the Iraq war with the no-bid contracts. It was bad with the green energy push and other stuff we're seeing now with the DEI all over the place and trying to take over schools and all the craziness that we're having go everywhere. But the pandemic was in our face, shoved down our throats, where everything else has not been, right? So we have to have long memories on this, and we can't let it go. We have to hold these people accountable. Now the pandemic seems to be over, right? It's not there. And it seems like we're just going to go down the path of forgetting. Nobody's going to be held accountable. We put this thing under emergency use.
Yeah.
People have died. People have been injured from it. We still don't know the cause or the totality of all the things that this vaccine is going to cause. We won't know that for decades. But we can't punish anybody for it because it was under emergency use.
Right.
We can never again allow ourselves to be forced into it. I mean, this has happened in the past, the Tuskegee experiment, where people were forced to take something. It didn't go well then. It's disgusting what happened then. This is kind of, I'm not going to say the same thing because it's very different, but this was another thing where the government really did
same premise,
an overreach. And we can't do it. We can't do it. It should never have been done in the first place.
Yeah.
Kudos to everybody who stood up and said no. I mean, that's, especially if you lost your job in the process of that.
Yeah.
You lost your job, but you were on the front line of gaining back what we were getting taken from us. So people like us, we didn't have that happen to us because those people stood up and made such noise.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for that. You saved my job. I got to keep my job because you lost yours. That's kind of a really weird thing to say. It doesn't feel good saying that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
But in the grand scheme of things, those are the people who stood for freedom. And that, I mean, people will probably hear this and laugh at it or say it doesn't, whatever. Everyone's going to have an opinion about it. It wasn't that big of a deal. No, it was. It absolutely was. Because the next one,
the more and more information that comes out about it, like I kind of did for a while, but the more and more that it's coming out just constantly now, it's it's more and more infuriating.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about making sure we stay healthy and safe as a nation, not at the cost of our sovereignty, not at the cost of our individual liberties and freedoms. If you don't have those, you don't have anything. You don't have this country anymore. And the biggest thing that we could have happen in terms of tyranny is government forcing somebody to do something, right? That's not how this is supposed to work. If you are on the side of, I'm going to, support people forcing you to do something, I want you to think about what would happen if Donald Trump gets in office and makes something, forces you to do something. You know what I mean? I'm tired of hearing these education camps, these re-education camps. I'm tired of hearing all this crap about us being fascist and Nazis and all this other crap.
Yeah.
Like what I was talking about with the jury, with the Trump decision, at some point you guys have to understand, on the left, this could come back to haunt you. You start this shit and you roll with it. Maybe the next person in office wants to take it the other direction and point the system at you.
Yeah.
We can't have it.
Yeah, it's a really scary prospect of where does it end?
Yeah. Yeah, no one knows, right?
Yeah.
Fauci is a giant piece of shit.
That's true.
Almost kind of like the guy in the Oval Office.
Oh.
2024.
It's going to be a crazy year. This summer's going to be crazy.
Gonna be nuts, man. It's going to be nuts.
The debates this month, the first one.
We're
going to have a reaction podcast.
I don't even think they're going to debate, bro. Trump's going to, what do you think? He's going to be in debate behind bars? It's this month. It's not next month.
It's this month.
The sentencing is next month.
Yeah.
Okay. So
don't worry. They can do a Zoom.
They'll do a Zoom meeting.
Then they can mute him.
They would do that too. He'd start talking. They would absolutely mute him.
Of course. Sorry, we're getting a bunch of feedback from your jail cell.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to mute you. Sir, I'm going to tell you right now, if you keep continuing to not answer this question the way we want you to answer this question, we're going to hit mute and let Joe talk.
Did you not get our
he wants.
answers?
Yeah. I can see that happening. Boy, that's not even, how do you bring Biden out on the stage and make that fair? You can't make that fair.
Drugs. What are they giving him? What are they giving him?
The blood of frickin' infants.
Dude, they're clearly giving him something.
I don't know what they're giving him, but
like I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. However, the State of the Union, he went to like angry, right? Like he went from not being able to talk in coherent sentences to like screaming clearly.
So
what is that? Is that just adrenaline? What are they fucking pumping him full of? ADHD medication?
I bet you if we looked it up, I've talked with my wife who's a nurse and she works with people in varying stages of dementia. I bet you. Oh, look at that dog.
Oh man, that dog's upset. Stella, it's okay.
I bet you if we looked at
she
the
might be a Biden fan.
You are not a Biden fan. Are you a Biden fan? She probably sees a bear. We've had a couple of them rolling around through here. Yeah.
Sweet. Let's go get it. A bear cub. Can we get a selfie with a bear cub?
You can go out there and get a selfie with a bear cub. I'll have 911 on speed dial.
Fuck that. I seen the gun.
Yeah, well, you're going to need more than that.
No. You're a great shot.
Oh, I might be good. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to... Anyways, going back to it.
Here we go.
Now you took me off my thought.
Yeah, sorry. What were we even talking about?
Something about
you're talking about your wife as a nurse.
Oh, yeah.
The drugs.
I'm sure if we looked into it, this would just be signs and symptoms of dementia. Because I know they get angry and when things aren't going their way.
So you don't think he got a drug?
Oh, they're giving him something.
They're pumping him with something.
Sure, but when he's
like falling asleep and just sitting there talking to other foreign leaders.
Yeah, but he's like 160 years old.
No, I'm not blaming him.
It's sad.
Just saying, it is sad.
Grandpa Joe should be put out to pasture. He shouldn't be.
That makes it sound like you're saying.
I am.
No, don't.
Not that. No. Not that.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
He should be put in an old folks home.
Yeah.
Yeah, not put out to pasture. That's what you say to your dog when it's sick and you can't heal it.
No, I did not mean that.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, whatever.
Whatever.
I mean, he needs to go away.
Yeah.
Let him retire.
Let him go live out his days on his beachfront property.
Yeah, he's got a nice place.
Just stare at the ocean. That's where I want to go when I'm fucking old.
They all live out there on the East Coast.
Just go live. I don't want to live on the East Coast. I just want to live next to the ocean and just stare at it all day.
You know how relaxing that would be?
I know.
Man.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to the being corrupt for them. They all get this money, they come out and they just live the life.
Yeah. Maybe if we get popular, we can just do it from the beach.
Do you want to just be corrupt?
No, not that part.
Oh,
just sitting on the beach and staring into the ocean. I'm not against being corrupt. We'll talk about that later.
Yep. There's enough of it to go around for everybody.
There's got to be some for us.
There's got to be some.
We got to get a piece of that pie.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I just don't. These debates aren't going to go well.
I don't know. Could be pretty interesting. Trump could be an orange and behind jail cell, but the camera outside the jail cell so you see the bars.
Can you imagine how they would? That's exactly
what they would do.
They
For
would
sure they would.
They would have
you
somebody
can't have
come
the
in.
equipment in your cell, the guards said.
All of their cells would be like modern day cells except for one, and Trump would be in that one cell.
Yeah. Just a dingy old castle cell.
With a brute guard standing right there, like looking down at him.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of it, they'd bring him his meal of like one piece of bread and like mashed potatoes, and that's it.
That's it.
Here you go. Anything they can do for the optic is what they're going for.
Yep. I think so.
But you just can't hide what's going on. I mean, you can't. There's no running from
They're
where
making
it
it
is.
too hard to hide from it.
You have all those statistics and the polls, and for Minnesota of all states to be as close as it is, you can't hide from what's going on.
We'll see about that.
I mean, you can cheat,
Well, yeah.
but you can't hide from public opinion. You can cheat. I'm not saying that they're gonna, but they're going to.
I'm not saying they are. That they clearly are.
Yeah. But I don't know. Let's wrap this one up. Again, the takeaway is Anthony Fauci is a huge douchebag, and there's nothing worth taking away the freedom we have in this country. Because once it's gone,
you're never getting it back.
Never getting it back. And to get it back requires something that not many are willing to do.
No.
So we don't want to go that route. We have to stand up now over later.
All right.
Well, thanks for hanging with us through the difficulties. I know it kind of slowed down at the end there, but
Yeah, sorry, we had some equipment issues.
we got sidetracked. We're gonna have to figure that out. I'm gonna have to get some sort of like power supply.
Non-exploding batteries would be
Yeah,
good.
that'd probably be key. I thought those were. I mean, they were good.
Were they?
They were good, but like my kid said, she's like, "Dad, I told you a couple days ago that I heard a battery hissing." And I did not believe her because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Way to not believe your kid.
Yeah, it's with most things they say. I'm probably not the greatest dad in the world, I guess, but
It's fine. Did you tell her shake it?
taste it, stick it in your mouth.
See what it tastes like.
Yeah, no. But it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I don't even remember. Don't even really remember the conversation.
All right. Well, check us out on our website, bluecollartakes.com, social media. If you enjoy this, rate us, spread the word.
Yeah, we appreciate the support. Anything we can get at this point, we're trying to get this out there. It's important.
It is important.
Well, again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Thanks.